All right. Welcome to the Pinstripers podcast, a podcast about pinstripers hosted by two pinstripers. I'm one of your hosts, Jack Fleming.
And I am your other host, Freddie Villa. And today we have a very special surprise. We have our very first sponsor, the great and excellent Craig Judd out of Fresno, California. One of the developers and people that are still to this day doing the Fresno style. So Craig sent a message out with his sponsorship. He said, "This is going to challenge the pinstripe community to donate." So that is a direct challenge from Craig Judd to anybody that would like to sponsor the episode. Basically, we're asking for $20 minimum. You could send as much as you want, and you get a shout out to your company, your name, your Instagram, whatever you'd like. And we really appreciate it if you could help us out to keep this podcast rolling. So, Jack, who do we have today?
Oh, today we have Tanner Leaser, making sure I pronounced that right. We got the correct pronunciation from him when we did the interview. He is a pinstriper out of Arlington, Texas. I've actually known him personally for a few years now, and excited to have him as a guest today. Learn a little bit more about him and a little bit more kind of about the history of the area. It's kind of cool to talk to him about that.
Yes, Tanner, very, very nice guy. We're super happy to have him on. And so since taking the break, I'm going to be heading to a place called Nauvoo in Illinois. I plan on taking this audio gear with me and hopefully getting some interviews while I'm there. I'm going to be riding with Anthony Monaco, and we're going to be heading up there for the Grape Panel Jam. I think it's what it's called. So hopefully I'll see some people up there, and I'm excited to do my very first actual panel jam. Do you know that, Jack? It's going to be my very first one.
That's pretty cool, man. I think it's cool too that you're taking your gear up there, so that'll be our next episode. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Catch some live recording, I guess, at a panel jam. That's something that we've talked about doing a couple of this fall. I've got one coming up as well that we'll do that at. So, be kind of neat.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to get a hold of us, our email is pinstripers.podcast@gmail.com. And again, if anybody would like to sponsor the show, we'll give a shout out. And just let us know if you got any questions, if you got any suggestions, anything you'd like for us to ask our pinstripers that we interview, anything at all, just send us an email. We really appreciate hearing from you, and we really appreciate y'all listening. You got any more business there, Jack?
No, man, that sounds good. Let's go ahead and get to our interview with Tanner.
All right, so here is Tanner Leaser. All right, my phone says conference call. Jack, you there?
I am here.
Tanner, can you hear Jack?
Say that again?
I said, Tanner, can you hear Jack?
Yes, I do. I hear him. Yep.
Cool, man. So I'm going to let Jack take the lead on this one. We spoke, and we figured out that he knows you.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, good morning, man.
What's up, man? How are you?
Not too bad. One thing that I've been thinking about on asking you on this, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I've known you for 4 years now?
Well, this is a struggle with everybody my entire life. It's Leaser. So
Leaser.
If you look at it, it's lease with an R on the end.
Gotcha.
Most people say lesser, and I'm like, you son of a... I'm not lesser.
I thought it was Leaser. When I saw it, it looked like Leaser.
Yeah.
I think I've probably pronounced it lesser before, and Leaser, and who knows.
One of those.
That's subliminal. That's subliminal right there, man.
Oh, how you doing?
I'm doing really good, man. I'm super busy, which is great because I wasn't busy that long ago.
Right.
I was getting scared, but I don't know. I think I tried to change my attitude a little bit, and I did, and all this work came to me.
That's cool. Sometimes it seems like that's what it takes.
Yes, for sure.
I guess, for all the people that are listening to this that don't know you, Tanner Leaser that we're speaking to here. How would you describe your business to people? I mean,
man, that's
you do a lot.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, guy. And I have this conversation often with people. They're like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "I don't know."
I feel the same way.
I don't know what I do, and I don't know how to. And even if I knew exactly what I did, I wouldn't know how to explain it to you. I guess basically, I guess you could say I'm an automotive artist. Basically anything paint related, is especially with a car or a motorcycle or something like that. Really, the only thing I don't mess around with is airbrush art. Like, I use an airbrush all the time, but I don't do the mural stuff, and
right, shading and graphics and
yep. But in kind of any and everything, I kind of pride myself on being able to, from metal to clear coat and everything in between.
It's cool.
Well,
I know
Tanner.
Oh, go ahead, Freddie.
Before you get,
I know
Tanner.
Oh, go ahead, Freddie.
Before you keep going, where can people find you and your stuff? That way, if somebody's listening, they can go ahead and start searching.
Man, Instagram honestly is like just the best place. It's Tanner 41GB.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I was going to say, like, from the outside looking in, stuff that I've seen. I mean, obviously, I've seen your pinstriping and stuff. I've seen you do lettering and whatnot on cars. And I know, from conversations and stuff that you do some stuff with. Is it Peterbilt?
Yeah, I did. I used to do a lot of stuff more paint related with Peterbilt. These days, it's not really. That's not so much the case. It's more graphic. Get in, get out of there, like
right,
and get back to the paint here.
Do you think that that has something to do with the industry, or more just on what it is that you prefer to do? Or
no, because I'll do whatever. I mean, if there's work, like, I'll do it. It has to do with the industry. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people. I mean, if you actually think about it, people, why would you use paint? Like, I mean, these trucks that are being done, they're turned around so fast. Like, these people use these trucks for like a few years and then they buy a new one. So a lot of these companies don't want to paint anymore.
I find it interesting because it feels like to me, I mean, you and me don't live too far away from each other. For those listening, we're probably like an hour away from each other.
Yeah.
Tops. I don't see any paint on big trucks here.
Yeah, no.
Like, period. And I see it in other parts of the country. I see people, it seems like up in the Northeast, we've talked to people on the show out in California and stuff that are still painting on trucks, but I don't see it here at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
interesting to me.
It doesn't really exist much anymore, really. It just doesn't really exist. That's why it's mainly just these days it's just graphics. Right. It's just kind of like the moneymaker. But it's funny because I was driving on 35 one day, and like I look over, and I see a big rig all like crazy painted. I was like, wait a minute. I look closer, and it's one of Todd Hansen's. And
that's funny.
I snap a picture and I send it to him. I was like, dude, look what I'm next to. And like, he was like, oh, I remember that. He like did it like 20 years ago or something.
That's funny.
Thought that was kind of cool.
I think I've seen like one on the road around here, and it was definitely an older job. Like it was wore out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. So what else do you do outside of that? I mean, I know things, but I'll let you talk.
Man, you mean like hobby wise or work wise?
Well, I guess either. I mean, work wise, I know you've got the longboard company, right?
Well, I did. I mean, it's not really. I mean, I did for like, it was like an 8-year thing. So I don't really do that anymore. The business, 90% of the skate shops went out of business. But when that was going, it was like, it was kind of crazy. There were in our good months, it was 300 plus boards a month selling out of this place, and these, and we were the brand, we weren't
Right.
the shop, the skate shop that people came in and bought. Like, we weren't the storefront. We sold to the storefront. But it's kind of cool because I did that downhill skateboarding for so long, and so now I'm mountain bike like crazy, and I turned that with Bum Squad into a mountain biking apparel. Me and a good buddy of mine who's been a friend of mine for a long time. We kind of carried it on that way.
That's cool.
Kind of cool. And
well, I know I saw on some of the boards and stuff that you had at the time, there was striping in your designs there. Have you carried that over into the mountain biking apparel side of stuff? Or?
Yeah, I have. Yep. There's
cool.
there's some of the stuff with some pinstriping in it and some little stuff that kind of, like our newest, like we have mountain biking gloves. Our newest gloves kind of look like lowrider, with fish scales and lace and stuff like that. Kind of got to carry it over a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
but
if it's part of what you do and who you are, then it kind of shows up in everything.
Yeah, for sure. And just like pinstriping, I mean, pinstriping is where I started. But I love painting too, like spraying and doing paint jobs, all that stuff. I love that too.
I'm sure there's probably a few people out there, if they're familiar with your work, and it's one of the things I've been following, I guess, over the past maybe 2-3 years, seeing you do the coffee tables.
Oh, I know, man. Those things, like, I did 1 or 2 in the beginning, just to like, I'm like, I'm just gonna see if I can do a couple of these and sell them. And man, I've probably done 20 of them or more now, and they all sell. They cool. Sell every time.
So I guess, again, if somebody's unfamiliar with it, what is it that you're doing on them? How would you describe them to somebody who hasn't seen them?
So it started as kind of like a little retro looking table, like a kidney bean shape, or like I'm doing some big oval ones. I even have some big rectangle ones, but they're basically just coffee tables. And I get these retro legs for them, but I take MDF. And then I take this resin, it's called Simtech, and I spray the Simtech on this MDF. And what this stuff is it's a guitar. It's for guitars. It's like guitar coating. So what it does is it like, when you spray it on, it like soaks into this MDF, and it changes the MDF. It changes it. Yeah, it turns it. You could throw it into a lake and bring it right back out, and it would be fine. It's real crazy because it probably soaks in halfway or more into that wood. It just turns it into something different, basically. And so when I spray that on there, it allows me to prep and paint this just like I would a car, and use automotive paint. Because if I just went and sprayed a base coat or something on this wood without that stuff on there, it would just bleed right into the wood, like you couldn't do.
Maybe like delaminate some of the little parts and stuff.
Yeah, it would probably swell up and it just wouldn't work. So basically doing that, it just allows me to paint these with automotive paint. And for a few years I was clearing them with automotive clear. But lately, because I had a table of my own, and I noticed that over time the clear coat wouldn't hold up very well.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm gonna try some pour-on epoxy. I did the pour-on epoxy, and man, that stuff is so durable. It is so thick too. So if you get if for some weird reason it does scratch, you could literally just wet sand and buff it, and it's like brand new. So that stuff works really well. A lot of times I'll spray at least one coat of clear over that stuff, over the candy paint, to keep it UV protected. Because I use the House Color Clear. It's very, very, very UV protected, and candy is known to fade out.
Right.
Normally that's from the sun. Normally, if it's inside, it probably would never realistically fade. Maybe in 20 years, maybe, I don't know.
Or if someone's got it in front of like a sliding glass door.
Yeah, like half of it's in, grabbing some sunlight every day for years. It might, yeah. So that's kind of the process with that. And man, they're cool. They go. I'm working on like 4 of them right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've seen you put in like the paint patterns and stuff like you'd see on cars, and then you've got striping then with those. And are you shooting flakes in them as well, or?
Yeah, I shoot. I don't even know if I've ever done one that hasn't been flaked. So I always start with silver, and then I spray flake over the silver. And I'm my favorite flake right now. It's actually been my favorite for like a long time. Is this? Do you know who Tukey is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or I do. I don't know about.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, Tukey. Paint Huffer makes a flake that's Tukey's. It's called Tukey's Drag Flake, and man, it is the best. It is the best flake I've ever used because it's not the biggest flake I've ever used, but it gives an appearance because it's square. I don't know why more companies don't do this, but most flake is like an octagon octagon shape, and but Tukey's is square, and it gives a bigger appearance, and it's easier to cover. It's really awesome flake especially for the price. Man, you really can't beat it.
That's cool.
So I don't spray anything, Tanner. I only do pinstriping, and I didn't even know flake had a shape.
Yeah, and it's I didn't know for years. I mean, I guess I knew when I looked at it, it was octagon. When I looked real close at it, and then when this Tukey stuff came out, they were like, it's square. I'm like, oh, I guess I never really thought about that. I was like, I'll try it. I tried it, and I was like, God, this stuff dances around like bass boat flake, but it's easy to cover. Because that's always the problem with flake is the covering it. Man, it's sometimes a nightmare.
Yeah, if you don't have the right kind of clear to really bury it down in there.
Oh God, dude! Even if
a fun texture to stripe on.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I've got some of that crushed glass.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like it. I'm on like coat 13 of covering of clear to cover this flake. It's like spraying clear over rocks. Wow. It's like gravel.
Pretty much is, isn't it? Little tiny rocks.
Yeah,
sand.
I'm like, is this for real? Like, yeah. So
is that like sanding between coats and stuff, and it's still like that, or?
Yeah, I'm doing like, because if you do so much, the clear is really not. It's gonna mess up.
Right.
It's gonna pop. So there's 4 or 5 coats. A light sand because it's still so textured. You don't want to dig into the flake. The light sand, and then clear 4 or 5 more. And I swear I'm 10 coats in on a snare drum that I have here, and it's still textured. So I don't know that I'll be using that again. It's not very worth it. But you know what? Maybe it's a user error. I don't know. But
that's usually what happens to be with me.
Yeah, well, it's like I can't bury it. I don't know the secret of this stuff. Then I
guess that's the thing. If someone out there is listening and knows the trick, there, send Tanner a message and let him know.
Yeah, let me know how to bury this stuff without using 2 gallons of clear. Yeah.
Well, man, you had mentioned that you started with striping and stuff career wise. How long have you been in it?
I have been striping for roughly 21 to 22 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And all in the same area?
Yep.
Fort Worth-ish?
Fort Worth, Arlington. Yep.
That's cool.
I've been here. I've been doing this a while, man.
How did you get started with it? It's kind of, everybody usually wants to know people's backstory, so.
Yeah, there's a couple little ways I got started, and it all happened around the same time. I was working at a sign shop back. It's probably been since 2000 or 2001 ish, and my buddy Mac, who is still a really good friend of mine, he was talking about pinstriping, and I was like, oh yeah. I was like, that's cool. I was like, I didn't really understand much about it though at the time. And he was like, yeah, I ordered a brush and some paint. And back then I don't even think you could order stuff online. I think you had to send something in, a piece of paper with a check, and then you got 4 weeks later you got what you ordered in the mail. And I remember he got it, and it was a green wrap. Really, that's all they had at the time. And that's what I started with, because there was no blue wrap, and if there was none around, and I didn't know about it.
Right.
So we would both, like, during our break or whatever, we would both, like, because we had a bunch of sign blanks up there, we would mess around and like try and do stuff. And I still have one of those panels that we did too. And it's so funny to look at, but you don't know what you're doing at all, but you're just trying to make the brush function. You're not really trying to do so much of design. And then from then I just kept on. I had a real interest in it. I was like, I want to learn how to do this. I'm like, this is so cool. And then, not long after that, I met a guy named Bump. He is like an old sign painter. He's from right down the street, really. He had an old shoebox Ford that was chopped. And he did a lot of sign painting, and he did a little bit of pinstriping. And
is he still around, or?
He is. Yeah, he is. John Bumpus is his name. And I still, I talk to him. I see him ever so often. And I would just go to his shop all the time and be like, dude, can I learn this? Can you teach me this stuff? And he would kind of show me a little bit here and there. And then shortly after that, he introduced me to Frank Palmer. And then and all of this is within a year. From the time I picked up a brush till I met Frank Palmer. And Frank Palmer is a great guy, man. He's such a quiet, like, gentle guy who, soft spoken,
I still see his work all over the place, and I've yet to meet him.
Dude, he was the striper in DFW for, 25, 30 years. He was strong at it. And there wasn't many people around that probably had as many jobs as he did around here. And his style was always my favorite style of pinstriping. I remember just being like, how is this so good? and I met him, and he was one of those people who, he did a lot of striping, but he mainly did custom fabrication on old hot rods, like chop tops, and he would do like all the old school modifications to these cars. It was kind of the way it was done, like back in the day. He's the legit doing it the way it used to be done, because he's an older guy. He's retired.
Right.
I think he's the only pinstriper I know that actually retired and did his whole career right and paid taxes and was able to retire as a pinstriper, which I think is just so cool. But yeah, that's basically how it started with me, and I would show, another thing, I would show up at his door. You couldn't really call him. You just had to show up at his house, which I think about now, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that.
Different dynamics of culture.
Yeah, for sure.
Things have changed.
Yeah. I showed up at his house and just hoping he was in his shop, and really hoping he was pinstriping something. Normally it was he was just working on hot rods, but there was times where he would show me things, and I caught on a lot. There was things he told me and things that he showed me that really stuck with me, and is really a real in my style to this day. Honestly, I think my style directly comes from Frank Palmer.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of neat, as we've talked to a few different people. Seems like some of the people have been around probably twice as long as you.
Yeah.
They'll tell stories and stuff about people that influenced them or whatnot, and how that stuck with them. And it's almost like there's a lineage to it, which is really kind of neat and fascinating to me.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, it kind of actually leads to something I've been thinking too that I thought would be cool to ask you. And I need to start asking this of people other places, but I kind of thought of it just because we're kind of in a similar area. And I'm always curious about the history of striping in the area. You mentioned Frank Palmer. You mentioned, was it John Bumpus? I hadn't heard that name before.
John Bumpus. Well, he's super under the radar. He won't average. He won't average. He has worked for Dr. Pepper for like 40 years. I mean, he works a job. He does not advertise himself as a pinstriper where he's trying to take on all this work. He just his dad was a big time sign painter, and that's where he learned all this stuff. And he was just one of those people who was naturally good at it.
Right.
He didn't do it all the time, but when he did, he was like, man, how do you pick up that brush and just do that so well? His lettering was so good. And you know, again, he was good friends with Frank Palmer. Well, remember that sub place we went and ate at?
Yeah.
So Bump's place was in that complex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what are some other people, I guess, that you know history-wise of the area that were probably big names that might not be around anymore?
He's still around.
Well, he's still around.
Alton Gillespie, man, that's more than likely, in my opinion, the biggest name. The biggest name in DFW as far as talent goes.
Right.
Ken Smith has been around for a long time.
Well, I met you at the Pinstripers, we call it Jamboree, the Jim Crawford.
Yeah.
So
the Crawfords, both Crawfords were around for a long time. They were both great people. I was very close to them, and I was very, very close to Jimmy Crawford, the son. And you know,
did you meet them early on whenever you first started, or was it later on in? Or
I met James, the dad, when I first started 20 years ago, and then I met Jimmy more like 15 years ago, and me and Jimmy became like brothers. You know, we all had a tight knit group of people, you know, and we all stayed close. You know, that group was me and Jimmy and Isaac from Pinnacle, who I consider a brother as well. And it was Loki. There was a few other guys too that kind of disappeared. But you know, Brad Meredith, Chase, those guys, you know, we were all really close. Travis, Corey. But it's weird because it's like a pinstriping family, you know, paint family in DFW, and you know, we didn't compete. We all just like loved each other. You know, we had so much fun, and that's kind of fallen apart a little bit. That doesn't really exist too much anymore. But you know,
well, I know some of the people you mentioned career-wise have definitely taken off and in different paths a lot more.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, some people have some pretty successful shops building cars and stuff right now. It's pretty neat to see that going on. So,
yeah.
But yeah, things change. It's interesting. And then I've found this interesting for myself looking around, you know, on the internet, the whole kind of world of pinstriping deal. I'm 42. I think you and I are probably
I'm
really close in age. Yeah. Most of the people I personally know in the area and abroad, it seems like there's a high percentage of us that are in that kind of late 30s to mid 40s, maybe early 50s age bracket that really took on to it. And then it seems like there's a little bit of a gap, and now there's more people, I guess, that are in their 20s and stuff that are kind of starting off with it again. It's kind of neat to see how it goes in waves like that. But then you mentioned, you know, kind of some of the people have disappeared or moved on to other things or whatnot.
It's hard to make a make a living doing this,
Oh yeah.
It's hard. I mean, like we talked about before, you have to do more than just one thing in the paint world. Like you gotta hustle. You gotta figure out how to leaf. You gotta figure out how to letter. You gotta figure out the obvious pinstriping, multiple kinds of pinstriping. If you don't want to have to work for somebody,
right?
With me, I just took any and everything I could possibly learn paint related. I worked at, last job I actually worked was at Iron Horse, and it's funny because I mentioned this in another podcast, but I worked at, that was the last job I worked, and that was in 2006. But it was funny because I was just the painter and pinstriper, like one of them. And so the last job I actually worked, I just did the same thing. I just did it for somebody. And, that's where I really learned how to paint. Because, man, we would paint like 5 or 6 bikes at one time in the booth. We had like 10 booths in there, and each booth was for something different. Like we had a booth specifically just for Intercoat, which is clear base coat, that we would just bury all the paint graphics in. But yeah, I mean, that's how I mentioned learning everything. That place was like a crash course for learning everything, and everything we did was on top of base coat. We never cleared first and then did our artwork on top of the clear. We did every bit of artwork, every bit of pinstriping, all freehand on top of base coat every single day for, I probably did. There were times where I would do 3 or 4 bikes a day. And these are full graphic bikes. These aren't like a quick pinstriping job. These are like graphics, multiple colors, multiple kinds of pinstriping. And it's like every bit of it was on base. And I think that's why I feel so confident doing that these days, because you save a lot of time by doing that.
Definitely make you learn how to either 1, not mess up, or 2, hide your flaws.
That's exactly right. Yeah. You become a magician.
Yeah. Pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh, I was trying to think of something else.
I had a question.
I guess
I had a question, Jack.
Yeah, go for it.
Hey, so I see on here on the Instagram, there's something that says caffeine and color.
Yeah, so basically that's kind of my business name. It's kind of more a funny thing, like because basically I love caffeine. I'm addicted to coffee, and I kind of started my own coffee deal too. Like where I had, I would sell coffee and it was caffeine and color. And so, I had that for a while too. And I still do that actually. It's just, I don't do it as crazy as I was, but I love caffeine and I love coffee. So it's just kind of a fun, cool little, like something to come up with to put something to me, not just Pinstriping by Tanner. Because here's the thing, I'm not just a pinstriper, and that's what my business cards were, Pinstriping by Tanner, for like 15 years, but it's more than pinstriping. So that was my way of kind of dissolving the Pinstriping by Tanner thing.
Nice.
That's kind of something, or leads to something that I feel like, I don't know, I probably struggle with, and there's other people, and that's the balancing act, I guess. I mean, you mentioned you've got to be able to do more than one thing.
Yeah.
Whenever you're marketing yourself, because that's part of running any kind of business.
Yeah.
You say that you wanted to branch out from that Pinstriping by Tanner thing. I almost feel like I've got the opposite problem. Like I do too many things, and it's hard to market because of that. What are your thoughts on that, or any advice you'd give for people? Since
man, that's kind of weird. I've never had that feeling once. From
your direction on that. I mean, it's 2 different perspectives of the same kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm just like, bring on the work. I'll work in 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I never had kids. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So my life has been always kind of, I can make whatever happen, and even when I was raising a kid, at one point, at that point, my shop was at my house.
Right.
So it's like,
oh, that's what I'm doing.
yeah. So like having that shop at my house was pretty awesome. And nowadays, I mean, whatever work comes in here, like I say yes. I will, if I can't do it, I know somebody who can. So I will make it always work. The only thing that I can't necessarily just do and say, yes, bring it on, is a full car paint job. I'm not set up for it.
Right.
Sometimes, I can get away with something like that if Shorty is open. They got out in Midlothian, my buddy.
Right. Go out and use his booth or something.
Yeah. And share the job, or both of us do it and make a buck. And, if the situation is something like that, that's kind of a different story. But
yeah, I've got a couple of shops that if people want full paint stuff, I'm like, look, I'll work with this painter and we'll work together on stuff and kind of collaborate and we can do it together, but it's going to be through their shop kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep. But I don't have a paint booth, and that's my thing and that's actually, I'm looking for a paint booth right now. I just happen to be in the worst spot ever. Dalworthington Gardens, they're like, if they come in here and they see an extension cord on the floor that's not even plugged in, like, you're going to like get a ticket. I mean, they're
yeah, you got to work with zoning on that.
Yeah. So getting a paint booth it feels overwhelming. Feels overwhelming to me, because I don't know how hard it's going to be for them, but I don't know. I'm going to try though.
Kind of thinking about some other stuff, and then again, knowing you, so there's things I know I can ask about. And I think it might be kind of neat. Sometimes it's cool to ask people about their cars and stuff. I know you've got your Gia. I've seen you working on for a long time.
Yeah, it's a super expensive paperweight.
It is quite the Gia.
Yeah, it is.
What would you tell people about that? That's kind of cool, I think.
Well, first off, I've been in the Volkswagens as long as I've been pinstriping, and I've had probably 10 of them. But this is my first Gia, and I just, I kind of already done everything else. I've done every Volkswagen every kind of way, and I wanted to build one that was just so extreme, and I wanted to build one that was like very, very fast. So that's what I'm trying to do here, but I take one step forward and two steps back, sometimes more. And but yeah, I mean, the motor is a massive motor. It's a 2276, and it's got a big turbo on it. It's got flex fuel. It's got a Haltech system. It's it's probably, you could probably get in the 400 horsepower range, which I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but in a car that weighs 1,800 pounds.
Yeah, it's a pretty lightweight, small.
Yeah, it would be like having a Vet with 900 horsepower, roughly. So, if
any of y'all out there listening are looking at Tanner's Instagram page, you got to scroll down until you find his car there. It's something else, I think. I was on the Volkswagen scene for a long time too. So
yeah, it is a different kind of Volkswagen for sure, and that's kind of what I was going for. I mean, I want it to look like a Volkswagen. I want it to look that look. But I want it to have different looks too when you look at it. Different ways of doing things.
I know some other things people might know you for as well. You're in a band, right?
Yeah, I've played with the same guys forever, man. For a long
and what do you
time.
play?
I play, like, what instrument?
Yes.
I play bass guitar.
Bass guitar. What is y'all's band name? And if somebody wanted to search that out.
I was in a band. I still am. Actually, we just played a couple shows a few weeks ago, and that band was 41 Gorgeous Blocks. Probably got 6 or 7 full-length albums out of that one. And then I've been in a band with my cousins forever. I mean, these are the guys I started playing music with, back in like 94, 95. And we have a band called Weaver Street. And it's just it's an outlet. It's a creative outlet that we all just ache for, you know? And so that's kind of all it is these days. There was a time where it was like tour and record, and it was kind of stressful, and you're like, oh, I don't want to be doing this right now. But now it's just like, it's fun. It's fun. And like, you're doing this stuff with the people that you grew up with and that you love. And it's a kind of a special thing at this time of my life.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Freddie.
Yes, sir.
You're still there? I know we've talked to quite a few people at this point in time, it seems like, and I'm wondering if you can help jog my memory. I know we've talked to other Pinstripers and stuff that play music. It seems kind of common to me. I know you've had your hand in, I guess, the sound side of that and all. Do you remember who else it was that we've talked to?
I know Steve Chiseka plays on the harmonica a little bit.
Right.
I'm unsure if there was anybody else that played music. I've just seen him jam on the harmonica, maybe as a hobby.
Yeah, maybe it was somewhere else that I was thinking of. I thought that we'd talked to some of it. It does seem kind of common, you know. I know people. There have been people, and I don't get it too often anymore, but they're like, oh man, you do art. What a great hobby. I'm like, no, it's not my hobby. This is what I do for a living. But I see a lot of other stripers and stuff that make a living that, you know, music is often kind of their hobby. So,
I mean, I heard Scratch plays a skin flute. That's about last I heard. For sure, I heard that. Yeah. No shame.
Causing beef here on our podcast.
Yeah, let's start our first fight. This is our first one.
There's no fight there. Just
we'll have to try and get him on here now and see what he has to say about that.
Yeah.
I run sound. I come from a sound engineering. I went to school for sound, and I was in a band long enough to get a bad review. So. Yeah, it was in print. It was on paper. It said something about like, well, the crowd was enjoying it, I guess, and I don't really know what they're trying to do with this, but the crowd was enjoying it. And I said, all right, well, I think that's it.
That's fun.
You know what? Were you having fun?
Yeah, we were. You know what happened was the other guys, like I get like stage fright. And I'm not the best. I play a little guitar. I sing a little bit. And I'm not the best at it. So I don't have a lot of confidence. And the other two guys ate like a bunch of edibles.
Oh, God.
And this is like before edibles were just all over the place. So they were like unknown strength of. So they were really stoned. And I'm nervous. So, you know, I'm considering paces in my mind. Like, and the drummer's like all of a sudden playing like twice as fast.
Oh my gosh!
I guess he was nervous,
or was he?
And our bass players was Italian. He is Italian, so like, and we did cover songs, so we did like kind of almost like rockabilly, country-esque. So I'd look over at him, and he'd be like doing this like almost like a jamboree type back and forth dance. Yeah. So I was trying hard not to laugh at him. He just was overdoing it. You know what I mean? Overselling the thing. And we got through it. It was luckily not in front of a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh, man.
That's cool.
Hey, as long as you were having fun, that's all.
Yeah, we had a good time. I liked the songs we were doing. You know, it just become taxing. And, you know, at some point, I took a break from doing the rehearsals, and I thought maybe those two guys would continue them, but they had no interest in jamming with themselves. So I was like, well, if this isn't like a group at all, like, I don't see the point. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yep.
I feel you, dude. Everybody's got to be on the same page for it to be worth it. Otherwise, you know.
Absolutely.
Waste of time.
Yeah. And I felt bad too because the bass player is a phenomenal guitar player. He was just playing bass because I can't play bass and sing at the same time. That's like a different movement.
Yeah. Yep.
So I gave it a shot. It was fun.
Yeah. Heck yeah, dude.
Now, I've tried to play the ukulele, but that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah.
Tried.
Those are fun because you can carry them around, and there's no like big massive thing. You know.
Yeah, it's fun.
You know, it's funny. I cannot play one of those, but my girlfriend can. Like, I'm like, oh man, you got to teach me how to do that. You know, I've been playing in a band for 25 years.
I started goofing around with it because my daughter wanted one, and she got one, and then trying to help her, stay with it and all. I was like, you know what? I'll get one too, and then we can play together. And then she quit, and I kept goofing around with it. So.
Yeah. Another weird thing, honestly, being around instruments for 25 years, you just kind of pick up things, and the weird part for me is, I play a bass guitar. It's a guitar. And, but I can't play a regular guitar. Like, I can play power chords. I can't play guitar very good at all, but I can play drums better than I can play guitar. Like a regular guitar. Which is kind of weird.
I could see that because the bass is a rhythm. Yeah,
for sure. Like I play with the drums,
Yeah, every time I'd go to mix a band, I'd start with the kick drum. Then I'd get all the drums done. Then I'd go get the bass player to start thumping away on his bass. And then I'd get the kit and the bass to play together to get the foundation. And then I'd continue everything else. Yeah.
It's just crazy that I'm more in tune with those motions than I am an actual guitar. A regular guitar.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I know quite a few bass players / drummers out there.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense, I guess.
Well, kind of getting back to pinstriping, so we don't turn into a music podcast. I was wondering before, and I was kind of trying to lead up to it. How do you see pinstriping in like the Dallas-Fort Worth area over the time since you started to now? Do you think it's grown? Do you think it's shrunk? Do you think it's completely changed in any way? Or
I feel like from when I first started, it has grown because realistically, pinstripers back then who did custom pinstriping was literally Frank Palmer. It was Ken Smith and Alton Gillespie. And man, I feel like that's Daniel. But he's kind of way on the outskirts. That was really it back then. There was nobody else. I mean, Crawford. I take that back. There was Crawford too, but Jimmy didn't. Only James. So there's probably only 5 of them back then. Now there's probably, roughly 15. I would say some of those.
When you say that, you mean like that make a living with it, or?
Yeah. Not even probably. Honestly, probably not even make a living. I'm just talking about somebody who will pinstripe and do a job for a customer.
Right.
And even some of those people maybe shouldn't be. I don't know. and I don't mean that in a mean way. I really don't.
Am I on that list?
Hell no, man. Nah. You were naturally good. Like for your time, for the amount of time that you've been doing it, I have always been surprised. Like you picked it up real quick.
Well, I actually started around the same time that you did, and then quit for a long time and pursued other art things, murals and canvas painting and all that stuff.
Gotcha.
Came back, and it seems like to me, and then I've seen it kind of with other people too. A lot of those other avenues and stuff going down have helped a lot, especially for like color theory and stuff like that. It's a big, I don't know, I guess influence or up game or whatnot to have seen it in a different application and be able to bring it over to that.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah. I mean, and back then, probably not until like even the past like 5 years, maybe a little bit longer, 6 years. You couldn't. There was secrets, and you didn't.
Right.
No one would tell them, and you had to figure them out yourself. Especially in the leafing game. The leafing game was 100% different 10 years ago. you couldn't.
I feel like there's still some people holding on to some secrets in that one.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like leafing is fun. I mean, I've been doing leafing for 18 years, and I feel like I got that down. I feel confident with that. I feel like I don't need any more tricks on that one. But the whole we used to spin silver with crushed velvet.
Right.
There was no Trizac 3000 or 5000, and hell, that's what Loki used to spin with too. Crushed velvet. And
that's what I started figuring it out with. And I was like, why is this not working like I'm seeing other people?
Exactly.
And that's because nobody was still doing that.
Yeah. And so me and Loki would always be like, oh man, what velvet are you using? Because we would go to Joann's and we'd be like, this looks good. And we would even not get velvet sometimes. And same, me and Hot Rod Jen, me and Beth Kearney, we always used to talk about fabrics, and this was before Trizac. We would talk about fabrics. We would send each other fabrics, different spinning fabrics, to try and be like, "Oh, this one's pretty good. Go try it out." And it's all about how much stuff you put under the fabric.
Right.
We would use those makeup applicators or sponges, and we would put them underneath the velvet, and then we would pull it kind of tight, and then we would rubber band it around some sort of dowel rod that we would make, something along those lines. And
my first one I ever made was over a cotton ball.
Yeah, and that's common. That's common for sure. I always wanted a harder edge, so I would use those makeup applicators because it had an actual edge that you could cut, like a squared edge.
Right.
It didn't translate to the tool very well. It would obviously round off when you pulled it tight, but it kept more of a platform, which worked good for me in the times. In the times you didn't see spins like you do now, and that just is what it was. What it was. And then I remember one day I saw Loki's spins, and I was like, dude, what the hell? I was like, all right, you're doing something and you're not telling me. And he goes, and this was kind of a funny thing between us. And I was like, because my thing is I wanted to earn it. I wanted to earn it because I had 10 years in trying to figure it out. I didn't want it to be just told to me. And he was in California with Danny D and Bugs, and they showed him. And what it was a Trizac is when people first figured it out.
Right.
And I was like, dude, I want to know, but I don't want you to tell me. I want to figure it out. He's like, dude, just think about it. He's like, just think about what it is. Just think about what would do that. He was trying to tell me without telling me. And he never did tell me. And Loki was at one time he was a really close friend of mine, really close. And he never told me. I actually ended up finding out on accident, which was a complete bummer. I mean, I would have found out eventually anyways, but I found out at the very first Airbrush Art Circus, which was not a class. It was a get together.
I've heard stories about that, but
and I found out, Rob Churchill, I think that was his name.
Yeah.
The airbrush guy. Real nice guy. He walked up. He's like, "Oh, dude, check these out." He's like, "Man, these are great for spinning silver." And I looked at it. I was like, "Son of a bitch, that's what it is. That's what it's been this whole time." Freaking Trizac that I use to freaking wet sand cars with every day. I'm using it on other applications all the time. And he walks up with a tiny little disc of Trizac, and I was like, "That's it."
That's funny.
Which I was just like, oh my God, so obvious. Now you can buy 1,000 different tools from 1,000 different people that make the exact same thing with their name on it, And you know what? I felt like I stayed true to it because, this was a secret. This was a secret that Danny D had. Danny D is, I definitely want to mention this in this podcast because this is, and I've told a bunch of people this, and I've said this on other podcasts too, but Danny D is why, I don't know if y'all know who he is.
Yes.
Yeah, we know.
So he is why I do any of what I do right now. He is why I'm into paint. So in the 80s, I was a kid in the 80s. I'd ride my bike everywhere, and I would always like save up my change, and I would go up and I would get Lowrider magazine in the 80s, and I was completely obsessed with those lowriders. And a lot of those lowriders back then, the featured ones, Danny D painted, and I was obsessed with it, and I just couldn't figure it out. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever, and so that always stuck with me all this time, and like that guy, that he's the one, he's the reason. So I had so much respect for that guy, and so I wanted to make these tools and sell them before anybody else did. But because Danny D and all of them, that was their secret, I never did it. Because it was like a respect thing for,
Right.
That's a deep thing for me. And it's like all these people just ended up doing it anyways. It's like,
that's kind of with everything. Things come out. Eventually, somebody out there who doesn't have the same set of standards, not even necessarily that they don't have them, but it's just a different set of standards. And someone's going to market on it.
Yeah, and maybe and obviously they're not looking at it the way that I am. But
right,
it's like they exploited it, but it was bound to happen.
Yeah. That seems like everything's like that.
Yeah, I guess the thing that got me the most is I worked so long and so hard on honing in that skill, right? And figuring out the best way to do that skill. I think this is where I hold a little bit of bitterness. And I worked hard and I tried to make it the best I could for so many years and figure out what could be the next best thing to spin this stuff. And then all of a sudden, there's just a tool that somebody made that eliminates anybody from having to put in that time. I think that may be where it kind of got me a little bit. I'm like, man. And then I was like, I would have been that same person if I would have made those tools. So it's like, right. Whatever. It is what it is. I mean, the times were the way they were.
Man, I know we're kind of getting close to the end here, time-wise. One of the things that we've tended to ask people, and it's always kind of funny, or good, I guess, is, do you have any fun or funny or exciting stories or anything that you can think of that you would share with people from pinstriping career?
I do. I don't know how funny they would be to people. One situation was kind of cool, and I was at a letterheads meet in Cincinnati, and everybody pinstriped the dumpster, which I thought was kind of cool. Because, I mean, you think about those dumpsters just get rotated around,
right?
And like every big name in the world was at this letterheads meet, and they were lettering it. I mean, Dave Smith was there. It's like the biggest names you can possibly think of.
I've seen pictures of that, and it seems like it's still there.
Yeah, and it's like, man, it was the craziest, coolest art on this dumpster. On a dumpster, it was smelled. And you got the biggest names, you got the biggest names in pinstriping and sign painting. Just one's right below this one, and the other one's standing right above them doing something, And that was kind of a cool experience. Kind
of a cool piece of history there for our craft.
Yeah,
really. Somebody needs to obtain that dumpster at some point in time if it ends up going out of commission and making sure it doesn't disappear.
Well, what I've always said was like, that was done at the American Sign Museum. I think that's what it's called, American Sign Museum, which is an amazing place. But realistically, that dumpster needs to be completely power washed and cleaned out and put inside there. Because like all the most amazing sign painters in the world painted the dumpster outside.
Or not power washed to maintain its integrity.
Well, just mean. I mean, I guess I just mean the inside.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about too.
Oh God, yeah. I don't think anybody would be going in that place. I don't know. But
cool. Do you have any other questions, Freddie? Or
I did. I was curious about your experience with the. I think with the television show, right?
Oh yeah. I did that. I was on a few episodes of that Fast and Loud, as pinstriping and painting and stuff like that. But that's kind of come and gone. And I don't know. There's a little bit of negative. There's a little bit of negative in that situation. But I came out of that situation with some really good friends.
Good.
That's
so
cool.
yeah, so it ended up being a positive situation in the end.
Yes, I don't regret it. It served its purpose at the time. I have good people in my life because of it, and that's kind of that.
Do you get any residual, like a little bit of cash every time that thing plays, or anything like that?
No.
Damn them people.
I get zero. I get zero money. But that being said, I charged a whole lot more than I would have charged anybody else when I did it.
Nice.
Because I wasn't afraid to, and I knew that was going to happen. So, another two cool things actually was I have 2 Hot Wheels.
Oh, cool.
that have my artwork on it because
that's what I was going to mention.
Yeah,
the one cool thing, I've seen one of them in person. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, and one of them is like a Redline series, which I don't know anything about Hot Wheels, but I hear that's like a big deal, and like they're $100 a piece, or actually they're probably more than that now.
Wow, that's cool.
So that's kind of cool, Like, no, that was actually. That one job that's the Redline series, that might be the most gold I've ever used on one single job. It was about $500 worth of gold.
Which car was it? Because I think that's the one that I saw at the Hot Wheels Legends Tour or whatever.
It was the Hypo Hauler. It was like an Econoline truck.
Yes, that was the one I saw. Yeah, that was a lot of gold.
Oh man, that was so much gold on that. But it was really cool. It turned out really good, honestly.
There's something for people to look up and see if you can find pictures of that one. Yeah.
The Hypo Hauler, and then the other one was the Midas Monkey.
Okay. I didn't know that you did stuff on that.
Yeah, I did the back of it. It just said Midas Monkey and gold leaf, and it was smaller, but it was on the back. But it's still it's on the toy.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that one too.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I saw that. You said it was Hypo or Hyper Hauler?
Hypo Hauler.
Hypo Hauler. I saw that one about the time that I first started picking up gold leaf.
Yeah,
man, and it was just kind of crazy and blowing my mind. I was sitting there for a long time staring. I was actually up in like North Dallas area at this car show that honestly, to me personally, was the worst car show I've ever been to. I was cringing the whole time. It was in a Walmart parking lot, and like people were picking their kids up and setting them on the hoods of cars and taking pictures and opening doors and putting them in. And I was just, I was anxious the entire time. Yes.
That's crazy. Wow.
I was so nervous at that show. Just walking around with my kids. I wasn't working it or anything. I was just blew my mind how people who, obviously not car culture people and all, were just treating the cars that were there, and nobody was like interfering. Just like, wow, this is different.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Well, is there anything else that you would share with folks before we wrap up here?
Man, I can't think of anything, man.
Well, I think it's been fun, conversational.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming on, and I'm going to say that I tell people that I'm still like a rookie and like an amateur, because I feel like it, and the more I listen to you talk, the more it makes me feel like a rookie and amateur, because I don't know. I'm still learning a lot of these things. Like I'm just now picking up,
it's all about putting in your time, man. I'm such a firm believer in putting in your time. It's all about putting in your time, man. I'm such a firm believer in putting in your time. And everybody has either done it or has to do it. So it's no different, and you're no different, and that's part of it. And I completely support that.
For sure. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, Freddie, I'll let you wrap us up, and since you're the one who runs the sound here.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much again, Tanner, for coming on, man. And I hope you have fun doing some good jobs. And it was a great pleasure having you on. And thank you so much.
Yeah, dude. Thanks. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll actually probably give you a call later on. I've got something I want to ask you about. So
okay, that sounds good.
Talk to you later, man.
All right, see y'all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.